So hello everybody. I thought what I'd do today is I've got my fabulous keyboard, master of keyboards, in fact, Jez Davis here, and we thought we'd talk a little bit about start with the Majesty's Medley that we did for Piers Gloria, because there was an awful lot of sounds for Jez to produce on this fabulous bit of kit, a lot of programming, 28 patch changes to do during the medley. Quite intense for you, wasn't it?
It was quite a bit of work, actually. Yeah, it's all on the laptop inside MainStage. I don't use any of the stock MainStage things, but I'm using other software inside that to program all of the sounds. And the keyboard is literally just triggering stuff inside the computer.
So each different sound that you've got within the medley, and there's lots of them, each one you have to program up from the start, basically, to get it to sound just like the original. So talk us through the process of how you go from hearing something on the record to when it comes out. And so many great comments about the sounds and how authentic it sounded. And you and I are really happy with the sounds that you got from there. But talk us the process from start to how it comes out.
It depends on what the sound is in the first place. So some sounds you just know straight away and it's kind of obvious. Others you need to do a bit of research into it if you can and find out maybe what synthesizers they used on the original. So like on Her Majesty's Secret Service, it was like a Moog modular, big thing that like takes up loads of space. So I've used let's find Arturia modular V3.
That looks complicated.
It's quite complicated.
Zoom in on that so they can see that.
Yeah, so you've got all these patch cables to connect and loads of different oscillators and things. So it's kind of probably beyond the scope of what we can do here to go into like how you actually hear what's going on.
To me, what that setup looks like there, it looks like it's the graphic of what an actual Moog looks like. And effectively, where you've got all those kind of cables patched across, that's how it would be patched if it was physically here.
Yeah, so those would be like actual physical cables that you'd plug in, and I think on the film they had someone who was there literally just to operate the mini Moog.
What to patch things and
make the patches basically, and I think they had more than one actually on that one.
They did. They had three, didn't they, on the original soundtrack? But those things were massive, weren't they? Used to pretty much fill a room.
Yeah. So I mean, there's no way to know exactly what they would have used on that because these different modules they could have had, but. I mean, someone probably knows. I don't. I can just do the best I can, and then it's just a case of listening, tweaking stuff, trying things, and you get better at getting closer to what you hear.
So the first sound on this medley is piano, but then you have almost straight away, as part of This Never Happens to the Other Fella, you've got that synth organ, which is a really distinctive sound. Just give us a little bit of that. Now, it's only a little tiny detail. One of the things I love about that phrase is that when you go up to that E flat, the weirder, it's got that scoop up to it. Now, is that something you've programmed in, or is that part of it?
It is something I've programmed in. So I've listened to the original sound and listened to the speed of that. That's called portamento. Yeah. So when you have a monophonic sound, so you can only play like one note at a time, you can do that kind of thing where it glides between.
So when you join the two notes, it.
I don't know, I've only got it set up for like an octave here, I think. But you can hear how it's gliding between them quite quickly on that one.
That's great. That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
And then so when you finish with that sound, you've literally got a bar to change the next patch, which happens to be harp.
Yeah.
So how have you got that set up? So you flick...
Because I did these all far too quickly and far too near the time, I haven't set it up how I could have done, which is just to have like a button on the keyboard to go through each patch. And I've actually got to press the arrow key on the laptop to go to the next patch. So I've just listed them here with the bar numbers next to them. So this is all the medley sounds for the Her Majesty's Secret Service medley and the bar numbers afterwards and what the sound is, just so I can see when I'm playing and it's not going to come out with the wrong thing,
So on the video, when you can see you diving for the laptop in doing the medley, you're just changing the patch to the next one.
That's true, but a lot of the time it's like, say like the last bit I just played, it's only one hand anyway, so I've got the other hand free to then make the change to the harp.
Yeah. I suppose you. Go on, just give us a bit of that.
Was it? So then you get a bit of harp.
But I suppose you've got to be quite careful when you're changing the sounds that you don't flick a couple of extra sounds across. And
You do, yeah.
Have you? Has it happened to you?
I don't think it has actually.
Thank God it didn't happen on that one.
I'm just extremely careful.
Yeah.
There's several points in this it probably could have happened where I've got very little time, but as long as you know what's coming up, and the patch is all kind of marked up quite clearly on the music here. So, and I've put my own notes on, so I write on my own notes here, which you probably can't read. So some of them related to patches. Like later on, I think I've got so I've got strings and the low moog sound on the same patch. So you've got the, and then later on, because there's no time to change it really, hopefully this is going to be strings. And it is. So.
Oh, it's fantastic.
And it's really great what you can do with the keyboards and with main stage in particular. So like when we've got the xylophone bit at the beginning, just find it. So this isn't just xylophone, it's layered in with piano as well.
Yeah, because on the original there's two instruments playing that, and this is one of those things where I say, look, can you make two sounds at once? Mm-hmm. So we can do it with just the 13 of us. It's these little kind of shortcuts that mean that we can make it sound more like the original, because we've actually managed to condense two people into one. I only pay him once, by the way. He doesn't get 2 fees for this. Sometimes doesn't even get the 1 fee, to be fair. But what about some of the other sounds then? We heard a bit of. What about that over and out? This is a great sound.
That was.
Now, the thing about this sound I love is just how close it is to the original. I mean, it's bang on. What about this one? Was this one that you had to spend any time programming, or was it one that you found like a preset?
I've programmed all of these. Probably most of them from scratch or from a very basic template that wouldn't have sounded anything much like the original, but it maybe had something about it that kind of made me think it would be a good starting point. But this one, I think, it's kind of got that bell-like quality to it. So it's just trying to find like the right combinations of different harmonics or different octaves, and I think that was in the Moog modular. Again.
I suppose there's a lot of testing and adjusting with these. Then
they're actually relatively simple patches, and it's more a case of just getting things like the decay right. So like when you press and hold the key, how quickly it like fades back down to nothing.
Yeah.
You can see there's a bit of movement in it as well. So it's those sorts of details that you're really listening for.
Yeah. Well, moving on then, there's the bit in Blofeld's plot where that kind of has that oscillating sound. We had quite a bit of trouble with this in the sound check when we first used it for the first time, because the thing with this oscillating sound, if you just demo it, it doesn't have any rhythm to it, so it actually doesn't correspond with the tempo of the song, which is correct as per the original.
It seems to be, yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is, because you can hear it quite definitely pulsing through, we found it quite difficult, didn't we, in the sound check?
Yeah, because it is regular, but it's not the same tempo as like you say, not the same tempo as the music. So it's kind of quite weird to play, actually, and you just have to kind of ignore it and just watch the conductor. And I think it's tricky for everybody, actually, if you're hearing that in the background.
Yeah. Just to clarify for anyone that's watching, when you play that note, you're not changing the octaves, the sound. He's just holding one key down. It's programmed. That's pre-programmed to do that. Just like the original. All right, then moving on finally on this piece then to Gunbolt Safe, which for me is one of the most iconic bits of music. Now this is, again, just so nailed, the sound of this. And talking like you were about getting the decay, I would imagine this is one that you've really had to get right, because it's not only the decay of the sound, but also where it kind of the sound kind of pinches and does that wow.
That's it. So the attack is the thing there, isn't it? And it's like changing the envelopes, they call it. So like how fast the attack of the sound is, but also how fast the attack of the filter opens at the beginning of the sound. So like filter is what lets through the high or the lows, and if you judge that right, then you can get that squelchy kind of attack to it, which is what you can hear there.
Yeah.
Again, it's another monophonic sound, so there's a little bit of portamento, I think, on that one.
So when you say monophonic, you mean you can only play. So if you play two, so if you're playing there two, or if you put your hand down on it, literally only one note will come out. Yeah. Except the only thing it's doing there is it's doing what you did before, is it's sliding between them, isn't it?
So as you're releasing a key, you've still got another one held down. So I could do. So it's set to like the higher notes taking priority there.
Right.
If I do it the other way around, it's not going to do anything.
So the whole thing is very different to how an ordinary keyboard works. It's such another level of what we're dealing with here. The amount of processing power and time that you're spending to program this is so much more than just a keyboard. You know,
that's true.
To anyone watching, they probably just think, oh, he just plays the piano. But actually, there's a whole other level of technical detail that's going in, and intelligence. Because I mean, I have a tiny little understanding of what Jez is doing, but actually to do the amount of in-depth programming you're doing must have taken you absolutely years of studying and understanding that.
That's it. It's just experience, really, and learning how you're going to get different things, what synth to use. There's a vast amount of different bits of software that emulate different synths, and if you can figure out or hear what it is on the original, and pick the right piece of software, and you're going to get closer more quickly.
But that's what I mean, though. So that's another skill completely. On one side, you've developed years of playing, actually, technique of playing the piano, which is one skill. And someone gets a grade 8 playing the piano, but they've never thought about any of this other side. And that's another skill, almost as complicated and as in-depth as the actual skill of actually playing the piano is the program.
Yeah, and I think it is, as you say, it's just time. You need to really dedicate time to that to get good at it. And I think it's, for this sort of show, it's like equally important, really, to have those sounds really as close to nailed as you can.
Well, you're the man for that. I mean, and since Jez joined the show, the level of the detail and the sounds that we've got has been just second to none. I mean, we might even just show him a couple of other sounds while we're here, just to finish with. Maybe if we start with something like "Diamonds Are Forever," I reckon. Okay. Because this is one that we've tweaked over the years a bit as well, haven't we?
So yeah, this is
So with that one, I'm right in thinking that you looked that up, because I always thought for years that it was a vibraphone. And it's obviously got some hint of vibraphone sound in there, but it's definitely you thought it was an organ, didn't you?
There is an organ in there, yeah. It's I can't tell you off the top of my head what it was, but I did look into it. I think might have been a Yamaha one of some sort, but it's layered with a couple of other things. But I think there's this. It's one of the sounds off that.
I think that's a really clever thing about John Barry, is that he doesn't just settle for what's on the instrument. As you said, he's layered. So what you mean there is there's maybe 2, 3, 4 different sounds all within one instrument that he's layered into that instrument, so that when you play, you can hear from that there's at least 2 or 3 different sounds in there.
And I think I've got that bit up the top, and I think I've got an extra bit of pad there, which is something like some sort of string synth, like a Selena or something.
Right. What else have we got for him then? What about Bond 77? That's always a good one, because this is such an iconic sound, and I for years I never quite got it what I wanted, but it's all that that oscillating filters that were on it.
So
that
the
make
first
it.
sound in the piece is that muted bass at the beginning.
Oh yeah.
But then you've got the really cool squelchy that stuff.
Yeah, it's such a great sound. That was that one that took time to program.
Yeah, that took a while. That's I did that one in Diva, this synth here, which is basically like an emulation of a mini Moog. So that's that.
Cool.
Probably recreate it if you look at what the settings are.
And what about For Your Eyes Only? A bit of that one, because there's lots of going on in that one, isn't there?
Yeah. So you've got. I think there's some pad in there as well. You've got another sample on the trigger up there with the Matt's doing.
That's another one that we've tweaked a lot over the years to get it to where it is now, and I've never been happier than with that than we have been in the last 12 months. It's just been fabulous. What are the sounds we've got in the second half? What about that Living Daylights is one that we've done recently, isn't it? We got that that opening synth bang on. See, we used to have this on guitar because when I first did the arrangement, we only had one keyboard right back in the start of Key of the Music, so I had to move that opening where you hear it in a minute, the opening line on Living Daylights, to put it on guitar, and it sort of stayed there for years. And then I said, Jez, actually, why don't we use this, fantastic setup you've got?
So that's the sound you're talking about, isn't it? So that's probably a DX7. It's got like an FM synth. It's an 80s one, isn't it, this track? So
yeah,
really
very iconic sounds,
iconic,
isn't it? Yeah.
80s synth.
I find it quite
DX7.
hard actually with the 80s stuff, particularly with the Living Daylights soundtrack as well. When we've done the medleys from that, it's quite hard to get the sounds exactly spot on because so much of it is processed and the drums are all programmed drum machines and stuff. So it's quite hard to get that. So it's great that we've really nailed that particular synth. There's any others that on there that the iconic ones? That's probably about it for now, I think, isn't it? So. Yeah. Although actually, while you're here, what we could do, just a bit of backseat drive. Have you got that set up, or? Because I that's probably the only place in the whole show that we sort of cheat a little bit. Because that bass line, as well as playing it on the bass guitar, we do have it on there. We have it on here. So Jez has programmed it so that... Well, you show them, Jez.
Okay, so I'm not actually sure what is where on this one. Anything could happen here, but I think it might be this one. There we go. So you've got the whole sequence. Oh, these other ones.
So you change note and the sequence changes. Yeah.
So I've used that key then to stop the thing. But because we haven't done it for a while, it's not fresh in my memory.
That's great though. I mean, that I love that sound. And
yeah, there's a little bit later on I think I do actually play.
Yeah, that's from later on in Backseat Driver, isn't it? I love that bit as well. It's brilliant. Well, Jez, look, thank you so much for your time with this. I'm sure that all the patrons watching will have really enjoyed that little insight. And it's opportunity for me to say on screen a big thank you for all the work you did for that medley. Because
no, thanks. I really enjoy making these sorts of things, and it's little details, but I think it does add.
Oh, the guys watching it are absolutely blown away with it, and it's those little details that all made up into the whole picture. Just being, you A/B it, the sounds, the mix and everything, and it's so close to the original. And a big part of that is that Moog sound from that soundtrack is such an important part. Hope you enjoyed that, guys. Thanks for joining us. See you soon. Cheers, Jez.